Serenity podcast. I've got an incredible guest to share with you today. Her name is Mary O'Malley. And back in June of 2019, I stumbled upon her book, which I'll tell you about in 2 seconds here, which has dramatically impacted my life. That's an understatement. And she's written several remarkable books. The one that particularly resonates with me is called What's in the Way is the Way. This book is a game changer, revealing the truth of how our problems are messengers and invitations for deep and lasting growth instead of blocking the way or holding us back. Right. And in the beginning of her book, she talks, it's like a little preamble, and it says, what if your challenges, rather than being endless problems to be solved, became doorways into the healing you long for? Wow. And what if you discovered that the peace that you long for is always within you right now, right here? Well, Mary, I can't think of a better way to invite you than that kind of an opening. Welcome, my friend.
So glad that we're exploring together, Paul.
You as well. It is a pleasure to say the least, and I hope people feel the essence of what we talk about today, and are able to do something about it, within their own lives. So let's start out with, like I always like to understand, like how did people begin doing the work they do, and what got you into this line of work, and the understandings, the perspective. For most of us, it's a huge perspective shift.
Exactly. It's an evolutionary shift, and I was as unconscious as a human being could be. In my childhood, I had the kind of childhood you wouldn't wish on anybody. Wow. And in my early 20s, I tried to kill myself 3 times. Thank God I was a failure at suicide. I once gained 97 pounds in a year, all trying to get away from that pain. And then when I was 27, my mother said, I signed up for this yoga weekend, and I don't think I can go. Do you want to go? And it was kind of like, oh, well, I guess so, And I walked into that weekend living in a B-grade black and white horror movie. And when I stepped out of it, I stepped into a Dolby surround sound Technicolor Panavision movie. And I could not tell you what he said. All I knew was the first time in my life I heard something that intrigued me, that drew me. And he was Joel Kramer. He was one of the first people to bring yoga into the U.S. big time. And he would come up to the Seattle area a number of times. And I think it was the 3rd time that he came up, I recorded the whole weekend. And then I went home and transcribed the whole weekend. If you ever think about, one sentence and then you reverse and whatever. But it so called to me.
Yeah.
And when my house and store burnt to the ground and I lost everything, the thing I grieved was that notebook.
Oh my.
And I went to him the last time he came up and I said, I want to tell you just what I'm hearing you say, and I want you to tell me, am I on the right track? And he said, okay.
Yeah.
And I said, in the seeing is the movement. And his eyes just twinkled. I had been sent to dozens of psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors and group therapy and mental hospitals, 2 mental hospitals.
Wow.
And they all were trying to fix me. They all related to me as if something was wrong. Yeah, so flawed. That's what I learned. That's how I learned how to be with me. That's why I tried to kill myself 3 times. You can't just live in that much. I think the hallmark of it was helpless, hopeless despair. And when he said to me, yes, in the seeing is the movement, what I was hearing, there was nothing that needed to be fixed. There was nothing that needed to be changed. It is in the art of learning how to be present for whatever happens, because the power of our attention is phenomenal. And I said the whole sentence was, in the seeing is the movement until the observer and the observed become one. In other words, you are fully here for life. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he said, go find out.
Can you say that statement again? Can you say that statement again? Until they are one.
In the seeing is the movement
Yes.
until the observer and the observed become one. In
That's
other words, the running commentary is not your main focus. The
that's
running commentary will still be there, but your main focus is being at one with the flow. You are dancing with the flow of life. But he did not teach it with heart. So for the next,
interesting.
he didn't. And for the next 11 years, I was a failure. I tried to do this. And then I had the wonderful grace to meet a man called Stephen Levine, who has written many books on death and dying, but
Yeah.
really, I mean, he had the Hanuman project for many years. If you were dying or your loved ones were dying or all that, uh, he had a 24-hour hotline you could call, at any time. And he was taught, his books are a lot about death and dying, but they really aren't.
Mm.
They're about how to be fully alive. And oh my God, I should grab one of his books. Is literally every single margin has notes in it on every single page.
I get it. I do the same thing. Yep.
You do the same thing, and it's now, I just look at it and I remember now.
Yeah.
And so he brought me home to my heart. Remember that when you are roughly handled when you were young, one of the things that starts happening inside of you is this voice that is trying to make you into the right kind of person so you can purchase the connection that you need in order to survive. Connection is, science has now shown, connection is more important than food for survival. And
Interesting.
so this voice starts watching whether you're doing it good or doing it bad, doing it right or doing it wrong. And that voice got so strong inside of me that I broke my own arm once. I was drunk. I was staying at a friend's house. I went to hit the bed. The duvet covered the board across the end of the bed, and I just kept on hitting it. It felt so good to hurt myself. That's the level of pain that I took on. And that voice of shame, until I met Stephen, that voice of shame was very powerful in my life. And slowly and surely, it all got brought home to my heart. And then life asked me to start teaching. Life asked me to start teaching in my late 20s. I said, no, 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 no. Somebody will ask me something. I wouldn't know what to do. So the first time I started teaching was in my late 30s, and it was because a friend of mine was doing a class at a local college, 3-night class, and he asked me, just sit beside me, Mary. He'd asked me to teach for years now. And so I sat beside him, and it was a fun night. And then the next night I went to pick him up, and he was sick, And that began this process. And then slowly and surely, everything I've done, whether it's speaking or leading retreats or writing books, I've never had any training.
Yeah.
But once you come home to your heart and you realize your mind is a wonderful tool for maneuvering through reality,
Yeah.
but it's not reality, then all I had to do was just ask life, what do you want to have happen here?
Right.
And books would flow through me, retreats would flow through me, talks in front of hundreds of people would flow through me. And that's one of the great joys of learning how to use your mind rather than being lost in it. So your heart can get a couple of words in edgewise.
So well said. It is not an accident that we have met because, as I mentioned to you before we started the recording, um, a principle, the core, not principle, the core of what I do is the heart. And
Yeah.
that didn't happen spontaneously on
No.
my, I didn't go searching for heart stuff. I was married to a woman named Susan Castle, and she was, we can say this now because it's posthumous, she was a master at the heart.
Right.
Masters don't speak of themselves as masters. We're
Right.
that, right? She clearly was, and so for her to change my
Mm-hmm.
trajectory
Mm-hmm.
wasn't quite as steep a trajectory as yours was, but I was a pretty strong Aries male, who was headstrong.
Right,
That's,
right, right, right.
and I would hear her say things like, let your heart guide the way, and I was thinking like, sounds really nice, and I didn't give it any justice because I wasn't in tune with my heart, and
Exactly.
then
Exactly.
those things shifted over time. I'd say the biggest shifts came, of course, in our quiet time together, but when we taught retreats together,
Yes.
when we did this process called Opening Heart to Love, and we taught the process, but then we witnessed it with all of our group. And that happened for years, 13 years in a row.
Right.
You can't help but that transform you. So let's turn this into a question. Um, what's refreshing about your work is like what you said about the first yoga teacher that you met. He spoke of it, but it wasn't from the heart. So
Yeah.
um, how you help people open their hearts is one of the greatest things that I love about your work,
Yeah.
and so people can experience life and what it really is.
Right.
How does one open their heart? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the easiest thing in the world,
Yeah.
especially the world is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
bombarding us with
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Just belonging. I think it's Ramana Maharshi says, all you need is the willingness. And so people that hear this, if this is touching you, don't go up into your head. Okay, now I gotta open my heart. I work with the power of question. When I began to realize that my heart was much smarter than my mind,
Yeah,
and my heart is connected to everything. At HeartMath, they did this. They did many amazing studies, but one of them is that they hooked people up to body sensors, mind sensors, and heart sensors, and then they put them in front of a computer. The computer randomly chooses the pictures, and every single person, the heart responded first, then the mind, then the body.
yeah.
But for about 20% of the people, their heart responded 6 to 8 seconds before the computer had even chosen the picture.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
Yep.
this is connected to everything, and it
Yes.
is a brain. It literally, science has now shown it is a brain.
It's so
And
much better than a brain, though, right?
exactly. And because it's connected, and it has, the heart has room for everything. So if this is calling to you that are listening to this, I live in questions. To me, and if they're interested, just I'll give you an email that you can post that they can ask. In my book, The Gift of Our Compulsions, which I was extremely compulsive, and then I learned that you don't heal compulsions through trying to control them. You heal them through connecting, through listening. And in that book is a chapter on living in questions, both check-in questions, which really bring you into your immediate experience,
Yeah.
but also open-ended questions, which you're asking without looking for an answer. And the reason why I'm willing to put that chapter out there is because it really helps you to see the power of that kind of question that Mickey Singer says in his book, Untethered Soul, we gave our mind a task it was never meant to do. and that is be in charge of life.
Yeah.
Most people think that now, okay, I want to open my heart. Okay, how do I do it? We go to the head. The head is not smart enough. It's not connected. It's a very tiny, it's like an ant trying to control the world. And yet
Yeah.
we bought hook, line, and sinker into this idea that if we just do it and do it right and all that, that everything will be okay. But
Yes.
when you ask an open-ended question of life, okay, life, what is the path back to my heart? And then you let it go. I know at the beginning it's a little rough. It's like, oh, well, I don't know. I'm not getting the answer, or should I think about everything? But
Yeah.
slowly and surely you learn how to create the space in and open. What is the pathway back to my heart? And or show me the pathway back to my heart.
That's
Or
good. I like that.
I am ready to come home to my heart. So
I
other than
love it.
looking at questions, I think it's also very important to understand that all of us have been deeply, deeply wounded. You know, they talk about PTSD, what happens with, soldiers at war. Oh my God. We were these little tiny people. John Bradshaw says if our parents were the same size to us as we are now, they'd be 17 and a half feet tall and weigh 900 pounds. Okay. And so we lived in this land of unconscious giants. They may have even loved us. I didn't have parents that loved, they didn't know how to love. A lot of parents don't. They think parenting is making the child do things the right way. But slowly and surely, if you really truly realize that, yes, I had a very traumatic childhood. Most people don't have that kind of childhood. Still, you are wounded, and in order to survive, you put armor around your heart.
Yeah.
And that armor doesn't let go right away.
Right.
It protected us when we were young.
Yeah.
It protected us from the heartache of not being seen, of not being heard, of being invaded, of being abandoned. It was too painful to keep our hearts open.
Yes.
But now we're adults. And so to really understand that this is a process, it's like the unfolding of a flower. Once you are in the place where you ask the question, what is the pathway back home to my home?
Awesome. Yeah.
Mhm.
As I have had my own experiences of that pathway, and thank you, Mary. I mean,
Yeah.
that's profound. I wonder, I don't know if that's the right way to say it. I'm in awe of the shifts, and these are paradigm shifts we're talking about. These are not like, little itsy bitsy shifts. They start out as that because,
Right.
especially if the mind doesn't get involved with thinking it's a goal. If it's not a
Yeah,
goal,
exactly. Yeah.
what would you need to quest after something that as a destination when it's already within us?
Already here.
Most people don't know that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the beauty of this is, and I suppose I should turn this into a question is, as a T.S. Eliot based question, if we're already who we need to be on the inside, but the mind completely rejects that, or at
Yeah.
least in
Yeah.
part does,
Yeah.
how does one begin to make peace with the part or parts of us that says, no, you're not, ain't gonna happen. No, no, no,
Exactly.
you do this and this and this and keep
Yeah.
doing your bucket list until
Yep. Yep.
someday
Yep.
you.
Yep. Yeah. It it
What does
it
a person
is.
do about that goal
It's
driven?
very tenacious. It is very, very, very tenacious, and
Yeah,
all this mind that thinks it's in charge and that has got to do things right,
yeah,
and secretly believes it has never quite done it right enough. But and if you try to fix it, which there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, it's the secret, you know. It's Bruce Lipton, which much of his stuff is amazing. Joe Dispenza, the really, really, really getting the heart of it, and yet then they take it into, if you just think this right way, then everything will be okay. Stephen Levine calls it the half-truth swallowed whole. And so it's to really to see that this is just where we are in evolution. That a couple 100,000 years ago, something evolved to the place that human beings could begin to describe life.
Yeah.
They could begin to talk about life. They could begin to write poetry about life. They could draw pictures on walls of caves. This was a major shift,
Yes.
in what was happening. But we've gotten lost in this mind. How do you become bigger than that story?
Mm-hmm.
It's not by fixing it.
No.
It's not by changing. It's not by rising above it. Boy, when I was waking up in the 60s, I was going to enlightenment. I was leaving all of this behind. I was going to have orgasmic peace for the rest of my life. Thank God I was a failure at that. It's through learning how to relate to it rather than from it. So, for example, one of the things that happened in my childhood is that both my parents had very high IQs, and they got divorced when I was 10. And my father was a very powerful lawyer, and my mother decided that my father was trying to make her go insane. It was a very testy divorce. So he hired somebody that every time we left the house, this man would come in and move something. And I didn't know that this man was imaginary until my 20s. My mother even gave him a name, Kilroy. So we would come home from school and there'd be a spoon on the counter. Oh my God, Kilroy has been here. Can you imagine what that was like to live in that kind of fear? Okay. And I tried to eat it away, drink it away, drug it away, psychologize it away, mental hospital it away.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until that moment, that astounding moment, where I could see fear rather than being lost in it.
Tell me what you mean by seeing fear.
Oh, okay. So let's say, an anxiety attack comes.
Yeah.
And let's say the breath is shallow and the heart is starting to pound. It doesn't have to be this dramatic, but I'm just using a dramatic experience.
Yes.
And your mind is going, oh my God, oh my God. And all of a sudden awareness says, oh, this is fear. That ability to begin to see that this storyteller in our head, the foundations of it were created by a child.
Yes.
And every single person on this planet is run by fear. That's what human beings are run by now. And so slowly and surely, you begin to have those moments where you're saying, oh, this is fear. In that moment, you're not caught in it. You are the awareness that you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the beginning, it's like 40,000 freight trains moving through you, and you have one moment of, oh, that's fear. Or take shame. Oh my God, the more challenging your child is, the stronger the shame voice gets, because a child feels they're the center of the universe, and if something is off in their family, there's something wrong with them. And I can still remember the moment, the first time when I was able to say, oh, that's the voice of shame. What
Got
helped
it.
me immensely is when Stephen opened my heart and I could begin to see there was no moving piece in this storyteller in my head that didn't deserve the compassion of my heart.
Wow.
Now, do these voices still come at times? Yeah, when I'm really challenged, they do. But I am a tightness detective. Once you come back to your heart and back to life, your energy flows. And then when the mind takes over again, things get tight. You start holding your breath. Maybe your favorite thing is your shoulder rising, or maybe it's a knot in your stomach, and that wakes you up. You're caught in the struggling storyteller. And when you can relate to it, hi, fear, I see you. I see that you are scared. And I document a lot of this in the gift of art. Well, all my books, you know, all my books, because it is the art of discovering that you are the space that all of this struggle is happening in. And the power of your accepting attention is what heals. So one last piece, I interviewed Eckhart. It was long before he became really well known. I think he just had published The Power of Now, and I interviewed him for the local paper. And in that interview, he said, and I won't get all the words exactly right, this is one of the most powerful quotes I have ever heard. Welcoming is the ultimate spiritual practice. That is what I'm talking about. Oh, this is fear rather than I am afraid.
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay that you're here. I am here with you. And he goes on to say, welcoming is the ultimate spiritual practice. You won't need if you learn this, you won't need to read any other books or practice
Yeah.
any other techniques. And then he goes on to say, and what I can do is send the quote to the person that people can get the chapter from the Gift of Our Compulsions, because it's such a wonderful quote. Because he goes on to say, your mind will not agree with this. Your mind will say you have to resist. You must resist what is here. Oh my God, I'm afraid. Oh, go away. Oh, I'm going to go drink alcohol to get rid of it, or I'm going to smoke some pot to get rid of it, or I'm going to get really busy to get rid
Yeah.
of it.
Right.
But then when you learn, oh, you are the awareness that can see these parts, and you
Yeah.
touch them with your heart, they just melt. Went back into my library at Audible and went back to David Hawkins' book of Letting Go of Control, and just was listening to a little bit of it the other day. And he said all you need to do is just let go of the stuff. And I realized, and Stephen would say that too, but that's not my experience at all. Because if you try to let go, let me tell you, it can feed the struggling mind.
Mm.
What happens is when you are present for these struggling parts, they let go.
Yeah.
Ah, so it's that the art of doing that doesn't feed the world of struggle.
Yes.
And listening to David the other day, okay, well now I have to let go of this stuff. How do I do that? That's what my mind said. No, Mary. No, no. Just keep on being present for them,
Yeah.
and they let go. Good
Right.
stuff.
You cultivate that awareness. I was just, whether we're the person who's being interviewed, a person who's listening to this, or the one who's doing the interview, we all are listening with one part, and then the other part is jumping around and wondering, well, how does that apply? And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I didn't think of how does it apply. It's more so like, wow, I've experienced this before. Wow. Oh, I am so grateful for the
Yeah.
many experiences because each one of those
Yes.
whether they be the down cycle, the
Yeah.
nadir, as my dad used to call it, when you're down in the valley,
Yeah.
or you're climbing back up the mountain, the climb doesn't seem so difficult. It was being in the valley of stuckness. That's what was difficult.
Exactly.
You're
And
enjoying the
that's,
climb.
yep.
And then you look back and you go, oh my God. I
Yeah.
mean, truly in that sense of awe of, wow, I don't see things the way I used to.
Yeah.
What happened? Who am I? Kind
Yeah.
of thing, which scares us at
Evolving.
first. There's the identity shift.
Yeah.
So, God, there's so many ways we can go with this, Mary. It's just amazing. Um, um, in your "What's in the Way is the Way" book, because that's the one that I've really, studied a lot. You talk about the storyteller, and you've talked about it before. How does one get in touch with their storyteller? How does a person become aware that there's a storyteller
Exactly. Yeah.
first,
Because
and then
we're
how do
so,
you deal? Yeah,
yeah.
and then how do you deal with the storyteller?
I'd love to do this. Okay. And I'll try to describe it so people that are listening to the audio. So when we were first born, we were wide open to life. And
Yeah,
then there was no thoughts in our head. Okay. And then I'm taking one finger and I'm putting it in front of me. And this is the beginning of the storyteller. And I'm taking another finger and then I'm taking another finger. And this is the finger of fear and shame and loneliness and all the stuff, the fear. And
yeah,
now my fingers are fully in front of my face. I can still see you, right? This is when we're about 6, okay? Now I'm bringing my hands closer and closer to my face. The fingers are getting closer and closer together. And then now my hands are completely covering my face. When they're completely covering your face, I'm meaning that's a metaphor for the thoughts in our head, we're completely lost in them. Okay.
yes,
So I was a part-time meditator from when I met Joel until I met Stephen. I just couldn't do it right, you know. And then Stephen said something to me, Paul, that just changed my life. He said, if you sit for an hour and bring your attention back to your breath one time in that hour, that is time well spent.
yes,
What does he mean? So most people think of meditation as, okay, I'm going to do it in a way that it's going to take me to peace and all that. That's
right,
not the kind of meditation I do. I sit and close my eyes every day to be with what is. Now, when you need to choose a focus because your attention is used to following thought wherever it goes. And uh, so if you choose a focus, and at the beginning, Stephen said, use your breath. I could not use my breath because I was sexually abused by my father. It was too intimate. I could not be in my body. So I began by having my eyes open and noticing shadows and light and colors. And then I was able slowly and surely to close my eyes and listen to the sounds. So sounds are always happening. The dog is barking, the heat is turning on, the jet is going overhead, the gurgle in the stomach.
right.
When that is your focus, you're gonna go away. Of course you are. We've only been lost in thought for, eons. But here you are, and you're listening to, you can hear the dog barking. And then all of a sudden your mind says, you know what? I'm really going to try to convince my husband. I really want a dog. And that's the dog next door. And I really like that kind of dog. Off we go.
Yeah,
No judgment. Your attention is now following thought wherever it goes. But if you bring, Stephen said, one time in an hour, if you bring your attention back to your focus, even if you stay there for a split second, what you've done is strengthen the muscle of your attention.
yes,
And that muscle is what, that attention is what can move from, oh my God, I'm so afraid, to, oh, fear is here. So I oftentimes say, people, give yourself the gift of 5 minutes a day. Who doesn't have 5 minutes a day?
Yeah.
you know. But I assure them that if they follow through on this, it will just get longer and longer because you begin to see the space that the struggling mind is happening in. You
Yeah.
begin to feel that that is home, not the struggling mind. And every time you return, you strengthen that muscle of your attention. And of course, then there's the whole thing about the heart. But to begin with, that's what's so very important. And I assure you, if you give yourself that gift, you will be able to see the struggling mind
Mm.
rather than being lost in it. I still get lost in it at times, but not for very long. I mean, it takes something like happening to my children. It takes something,
Yeah.
I have cancer and I've had it for 4 years. It's a rare form of blood cancer that won't kill me. I just have to take chemo every day that my body doesn't like. But what a teacher. But then 2 months ago, I got shingles because I'm immunocompromised because of the cancer. And boy, that pain, holy bejesus. And it was such a good teacher because I have it in my chest and it's a fire in my chest. But then there would be lightning strikes. And the lightning strikes, you just, you know, and I would catch myself. Here I was. I would close my eyes and go away. And I learned very quickly that the lightning strikes, because if I followed them, it was, oh my God, how long is this going to last? What can I do about this? But more and more, the lightning strikes taught me respond rather than react.
Yes.
And I would just go back to my breath. I would open things up, and then I would just flood these poor nerves with as much compassion as I can muster. And I've had it for 2 months, and it's getting a lot better now. But it's still my teacher, and
Yeah.
that's a huge in my first book, Belonging to Life, which I absolutely love. One of my favorite chapters of all of my books is chapter 8, the fertility of the dark. And that's maybe a whole other conversation because it
Yeah.
takes a while to get into it. But
Yes.
but the more that you wake up, the more you realize that your challenges are where the treasures are embedded. And as you learn how to be present for them, I'm not saying, if you get cancer, be present for it right away if you haven't developed the muscle of your attention. But it is learning how to do that with the stub toe, or the itch, or you just see how much the mind reacts, and then you learn how to go towards and respond.
I'd like to ask you a question that honestly, this is going to go into like a whole nother interview. So we can
Sure.
touch on it today, maybe briefly, which is good. I think it's good to do a brief, like
Yeah.
touching point, and then we can like expand on it in a future interview. Um, am I imagining it, or have people become masters of avoidance, especially
Yeah.
after? And I
But
mean, so
yeah,
skillfully. I've never
yeah,
seen anything like this before, that
I
people
know.
won't even tell you how they're feeling. They're like, no, everything's good. Wait,
Yeah.
but didn't you just say it last week? Oh, no, no, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
Wait, that's your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's with your kids. Oh, right. And it's almost like they just put a cover on it. And you and I have been in this field for 40 plus years. Um, I've never seen human beings have the ability to suppress it without it exploding afterwards, and they're kind
Yeah.
of okay with that. So
Yeah.
can you touch on that
Yeah. Yeah.
ability to do that and its unintended consequences?
Oh my goodness, absolutely. Because it that we learned that very early on. We had waves moving through us. We had rage moving through us. Just think of a older sibling taunting you with your toy. We had fear. waves of panic, of hearing our parents arguing. We had this sense of being all alone. Our parent goes out the door and shuts the door.
Yes.
We survived by stuffing it. And Robert
Yeah.
Bly says this wonderful thing. He says, yep, the poet Robert Bly, also a writer. This is in his book, The Little Book of the Human Shadow. And he says, yeah, no, this is not okay. We put it in a bag. And we go, no, this is not okay. We put it in a bag. And then we throw the bag over our shoulder because we don't want to look at it. And then everything in the bag gets really mad. And then it starts erupting. And all of a sudden you're in a meeting at work and you're in a rage. You don't even know why you're in a rage, or you're sobbing at a TV movie, and something like that. And so to me, we are in an evolutionary shift. And an evolutionary shift, the winds blow. They really do. And we are being shifted from what I call the me kind of consciousness, that we're just absorbed with ourselves and, our needs and, screw everybody else. And I'm better than you because of the color of my skin or my sex or my religion or whatever. And more of us are being moved into the we kind of consciousness, where we realize that we're all in this together, that there is no them, and that there's not one person in the world that doesn't deserve compassion. And I'm just going to leave that there because most people go, but that's a great conversation to have. And so COVID really shook us to our core. We saw that we are not in control. And now everybody is trying to gain that control, and anxiety in our kids is stronger. Drug addiction is stronger. Alcohol is stronger. It's all that attempt to numb.
Yeah.
But that's birth. You think I've had two natural childbirths, and when you get into that transition, oh my God, those contractions, you think, why did I ever choose to do this? Because they're so uh the and I was not awake enough at that point. I hadn't met Stephen at that point. So that was that sense that this was just too big. It was too big. And in my second birth, I really learned to soften around it. And so I think that if we can picture it as a birth, that we're not doing anything wrong. The mind is scared of letting go of control. It's terrified. When my mind gets terrified, I say, yeah, but remember, this is where the good stuff is. And it helps. It helps the
I love
mind.
it.
No, no, no,
I love it.
remember, just come back to your breath. This is where the good stuff is. And so if we can see it in that way, and if
Right.
we can hold Brian Swim, Brian Swim is a cosmologist. He won the Emmy for the documentary, The Journey of the Universe in 2018 or something. Amazing man. And he has a quote that I put at the end of Belonging to Life. And I won't say it right, but I'll get close enough, and I'll also send that quote to Asia. Um, the desire to make us over into love permeates the entire universe. And if the initiation is long and filled with doubt and suffering, it takes hold deeply. And these people become the world's greatest lovers, inviting others into, and I can't remember how he says it, not the joy of living, but of being love. And that's a whole nother conversation, but that's what we're waking up into. And
Yeah.
believe you me, the birth contractions, whether it's Netanyahu, Kim Jong-un, Putin, some politicians will say, stay unnamed.
Yes.
the birth contractions are worth it. Whether it's cancer, shingles, almost lost both of my kids at one time. You know, I've had so many challenges in my life, but I bow to them, Paul. I see how each one is tailor-made to bring me out of this tight and small world of my mind back into the joy of being present for life. And so I hold that for the world. And every once in a while, I'll watch the news and my heart will contract and my body will contract. And then I remember. And I remember that I make a difference by holding the vision. And the last thing I'll say is Sister Miriam McGillis, she was talking about this years ago. And she said, if you plant a date tree in the Middle East, you never get to eat its fruit. It takes 80 years for it to bear fruit. And many of the times during that process, it looks like it's dying, you know. And that's what you and I are doing here. We're planting date trees. And if I can get this message to more and more people that we're okay. We're going through pretty deep birth contractions, but we're okay. Just remember to do your Lamaze breathing.
Yeah. Yeah. A phrase was coming to me, Mary, as you were telling this, as you were sharing this wisdom. The deeper the wound, the deeper the gift.
Exactly. That's the truth.
In the middle of it, in the initial part of it, and in the middle of it, it's just like, oh dear God, I don't know
Yeah.
how I can handle this.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
hopefully, how do I say this? Here, I'll go back to a quick story that is captioning when I found your book. There was a relationship that I was in that was ending, and it's just like, no, because my wife had passed a year and a half or so before that. So here comes another ending. No, the ego is just going wild,
Yep. Yep.
abandoned it again. Oh my God. Little did I know it was about abandonment, the fear of being left alone. Again,
So deep.
the wound is being exposed, right?
Yep.
So my friend, who's a very savvy spiritual gal, she says to me, she goes, Paul, I hear all, God, she goes, you're incredible. You have this insatiable need for truth. You have this ability to go on the quest like few people I've ever met. Here's my question to you. Can you just sit quietly in your chair
Yeah.
and just allow yourself to feel this feeling
Yes.
that you're asking me for
Yes.
help? And I said, okay, I think I get it. Can you explain it a little bit more? She goes, yeah.
Yeah.
As you can do that, you allow it to process it meaning that feeling.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to keep coming back, like a
Yeah.
yo-yo, like a boomerang. And I went, so she
Aha.
needed to explain it to me for 10 more minutes. I go, Edna, I get it. She goes, wait, don't you need more explanation? I go, no, I got it. She went,
In the
oh,
seeing is the movement.
there you go. There you
The
go.
attention and the immediate experience and using the body, because that's where we trapped all of this stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somatic. Yes.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
somatic experience. In other words, as Dispenza teaches really well, your mind may be thinking it and starting initiating and questioning all this stuff, but those thoughts create emotions. The emotions get left in the body, and Eckhart Tolle talks about the same thing.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
longer that I keep pushing forward and opposing unknowingly something inside of me or something outside of me, I'm depositing that
Yeah.
objection, that suppression, or that no way. There's just no way that's going to happen in life
Yeah. Yeah.
deeper into my body. So
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what an amazing thing. So as we close here, let's meet again. Let's do another interview. I would love that because I think if there's anything we need, we don't want to presume what you or I or other people might need. But if there was one thing we might need, it is connecting. It is
Right.
it is studying with people who have been there,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
There's an old phrase that says only those who have been there can take us there, right?
Right.
Oh, I love that. So it's
Yeah.
almost like we get together with Mary in a room together and Paul or whoever, and we all get to celebrate this,
Yes.
remember who we're.
It's remembering. That's what it is. And it's what I said earlier before we started recording. I tell people we are learning a new language, and it's the language of the aware heart, which is our main brain. And if you want to, let's say, learn Chinese, you need to hang out with people. You need to actually speak it. You need to hear other people speak it. And
Yep.
then it takes a while. Somebody asked Stephen, how long does this take? And he said, it's the work of a lifetime. And which I love that answer. But then it takes a while. You can you'll barely notice your fear or barely notice your shame. But
Right.
slowly and surely your awareness gets stronger, slowly and surely your heart opens more. You realize there's nothing inside of you to be ashamed of or afraid of. And then there comes the time, because you're learning Chinese, but you're still thinking in English. There comes the time when you start thinking in Chinese. I mean, the heart brain. You
Yeah.
start thinking in that, and that is, I mean, to me, there is not everything, every single challenge we have ever had is worth it, because that is coming home.
Yes. Yeah. I learned from a wonderful friend of mine, Dr. Roger Yankee. He's a Qigong master. Maybe you've heard of him.
Mhm,
As
mhm.
he studies in the East as much as he's been to China, gosh knows how many times. They don't separate the mind and the heart. They call it the heart mind,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Xin. Xin is what it's
yeah.
spelled. And I got it right away, and I'm like, oh yeah, there is no separation
Right.
until of course when we have these things that happen to us, obviously when we're young, but also our past lives, and that creates the separation. Now we come to planet Earth and we go, "Ooh, what a place to learn how I'm
Right.
separate from something." So then, as that I've experienced that separateness long enough, there is this shift or inflection point that happens when I start asking myself, "What of this oneness that I've heard about, that I'm longing for, that my heart is kind of telling me?" It's dropping little inklings along the way. What
Always.
if what if that we are that thing that Mary talks about? What if we are
Yeah,
love,
yeah,
in as a premise, inside, as foundation, as our
yeah.
core? Wow.
Exactly. That's
So
the truth.
my
It's always here.
yeah, my work is all about the heart
Yeah,
mind processing,
yeah.
and again, we'll talk more later. So, wow, Mary, how would you like to draw this to a close? Like as a blessing for people. So as they going off to sleep, or as they're listening to this in their car, or wherever, that something that it stays with them in their heart.
Just want to thank you for listening. That all the children that are coming after us do not have to get lost in the storyteller as much as we have. And in those moments in my life where my mind just got resistant, I didn't want to do this, I would say, but are you willing to do this for the children that are living on the streets in Calcutta, being sold into sexual slavery? You and I can make a difference if we are willing to give ourselves at least 5 minutes a day. That's not only for our own healing, it's not only for the healing of our family, but it really is for the healing of the world. And that really inspired me over and over again to really, continue when the mind says, oh, I'd much rather watch TV or something like that. And I do watch TV at times, but in that resistant place, oh, I would say, no, let's do this for the children. And then my heart would open back up again. And every single moment of heart opening is a drop of water in the bucket.
Mm.
And I like to say to people, which drop of water that made the ocean was not essential in making the ocean. You and I can make a difference in the unfolding of life on this planet.
Yes, even you, even
Yeah.
you that's listening.
Yes.
Little you, even a part of you that says I'm okay, the part
Yeah.
of you that
Yep.
evades the not being okay,
Yeah.
that part too is okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
all okay. The mind is, no, it's not.
Yeah, it takes a little while to begin to broach and then enter and then
Yes,
grok, if you've heard that word, like when you can
yes, yes,
process.
yes, yes.
Well, I don't know if I can grok that fully, but maybe okay. How about if I
Yeah,
took a little piece of this and started wondering,
yeah,
what about that? You know, one of
yeah,
those questions you asked. So what would bring me back to my heart? Like,
yeah.
show me the path to coming back to my heart. I love that one. That really stays with me. That's like my woohoo for the day.
Yeah.
I love it. Well,
Lots
Mary,
of good woohoos today. Lots of good. Yeah.
exactly. Well, thank you, Mary. You've been a delight. I look forward to staying connected and coming back again. We'll do another interview. You know, the feeling I had this morning before we jumped on our Zoom in this interview was it's almost like conversations with Mary, like more than one of these, right?
Uh-huh.
So who knows? We'll see how that resonates or how it.
Yeah, then no, that feels right. That feels right because we just people are hungry for this, and in a way they don't even know what they're hungry for. It's like when I went into that room with Joel Kramer. Oh my God. I knew he was speaking the truth. I could not tell you what he said. I could just feel it.
Cool.
And then, of course, I would walk out of it and lose it all. But that's a process. It's just like a child didn't learn how to run right away. It had to learn how to lift its head. It had to learn how to sit up. It had to crawl. It had to learn to walk. That's awakening. That's awakening. And
Yes,
every single listener is right where they need to be on this journey home. And they are on this journey because it called to them to listen to this.
agreed.
And
Agreed.
they're right where they need to be.
Awesome. Yeah, completely agree. So,
Mm.
yes. So, namaste, aloha,
Namaste.
aho, uh, with deep gratitude and thank you.